I may be a husky fellow, but I don't belong in those cornfields. Husk. This is the 2011 Killer Scarecrow film that was put out by the After Dark Horror Fest label. And before we get into it, make sure to like, comment on, as well as share this video. Like my Facebook fan page and support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month will help keep this channel going on strong, thriving, and I'd greatly appreciate it. And as always, hit that notification bell and subscribe. Alright, let's get into this. The plot. Bam, we're right into the action. Right when the characters are just discussing what they're gonna do at a vacation spot, crows hits the car. Now they're trapped in the middle of nowhere, and they find a house through the cornfield. There's a dark secret and past about this house, and it's crazy. This film starts off so fast, and the whole rest of it gives you barely any time to breathe. Let's see how director Brett Simmons, director of Animal and the Monkey's Paw, as well as You Might Be the Killer, handles this. This is a skillfully crafted and effective horror movie. It starts off with 5 characters, then quickly lowers down to 3. The ones who are killed are the ones you don't expect to die. They are given a few quirks and subtle stories, and then are pretty much just discarded. It's a risque move that I feel pays off, and they don't disappear from the film entirely. With the last 3 characters in place, you soon realize you have to spend an hour with them. However, it is an entertaining hour for sure. Brett Simmons, who prior to this directed a couple short films, including one for Husk, does write a good story. However, some things were never explained and not even hinted at as to why they were happening, such as one of the characters getting visions from the past. Why did they choose for him to have them? In an interview, Brett Simmons said he wasn't allowed to watch television growing up. His grandparents or parents, I don't quite remember, were very artistic. And I can see that getting in the way of trying to give you an explanation for things. Or not providing an explanation, which would have been a lot easier to say. Art is very subjective, and you don't have to explain everything in a painting. One piece might mean what you think it does, while the other is nowhere near what you perceived it as. What I'm trying to say is that there doesn't always need to be an explanation for everything. This movie is dreamlike, whether in the real world or in a fantasy realm. While it's far from a masterpiece, it still manages to drag you into some awesome concepts and go along with it. Leave your questions for it for after the film. While it's on, just enjoy. I know that's not a thing critics can really do, because they have to see what's wrong or right with it. And it's also not an easy tightrope to balance on. I think Husk does pull it off slightly, though. I know what you're thinking, though. If you balance on a tightrope slightly, you fall off. That's true. It's either all balance or faceplant into the dirt. However, I feel the film's brisk pace and runtime help this. You can run across the tightrope with slight balance, and the speed will get you across. Basically, this is a safe movie in that regard. It doesn't try too much, and it tries just enough to be interesting and satisfying. Focusing more on what's in the movie and not what the movie does, the film's characters are not particularly developed well, but they do serve as people you do not want to see die. The one character who loses his crap all the time is actually the one who comes up with the best ideas. The one who seems smart for all his knowledge and book readings continuously makes poor decisions. The one who is supposed to be strong and understanding is also making poor decisions as well as going insane. It's like they start off one way and they end up completely opposite by the end. Despite their opposing personalities, they all want each other to make it out okay, and they want to be there for each other. Even the so-called coward comes up with a good way to escape, and he offers for his friends to join. They just don't want to. What does all this mean, though? It means the characters are not wholly developed, their stories are not concluded, and yet I didn't want them to die. That's a hard tightrope to balance. As for more positives, the lighting and cinematography are stellar. For essentially a low-budget horror film, it's quite well shot, as well as grimy, greasy, and ghastly. The sewing room is especially moldy and it looks perfect. It's disgusting, and I love it. I also have to note that, unlike in the trailers, the Scarecrows don't actually make any noise. They're just vicious in their attacks and savagely brutal in their killings. But even with that being said, in this next department, I'll explain why it's not that gory. The gore, the effects. It's definitely not the goriest movie out there. We do get some bloody slashings, nails hammered into fingertips. Not like your fingernail, I mean like an actual lead nail or whatever they are. I mean, regardless. Ouch. There's also an impaling and some more. The effects are all practical and look great. Mike J. Reagan was the head of the special effects department. He also worked with Brett Simmons on Animal, as well as Feast, which explains why in Animal the creatures look like they're from Feast. The motion picture soundtrack, Bobby Tahori does an okay job. It's actually kind of a forgettable score. I do remember some violin work, but nothing much else really stuck out for me. I know, I went on and on about the characters, but they're pretty good, so why not? The film as a whole package is quite entertaining, horrific, and even has a few good scares. It's got a cool lore from what we find out about it, a decent backstory, and more. I wish the backstory and lore, as well as reasoning, was elaborated on a bit more, and I always wanted a sequel to this, as well as Animal, come on now. But I still think this can kind of work as a standalone film, as it has done for 80 years. Overall, I give Husk a 3 out of 5. I am Brian Gatto, the horror show host. Make sure to like, comment on, as well as share this video. Like my Facebook fan page and to support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month can help keep this channel thriving and going strong, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Hit the notification bell, and as always, subscribe.